Confidently controversial. Confidently controversial. Confidently controversial. Good afternoon.
And good morning.
And good evening.
I don't know.
Okay.
Welcome, everyone, to Confidently Controversial, your favorite show for listening to ridiculous people talk about ridiculous movies.
And that's us. We're the ridiculous people.
That is us. Hi, Kim. How are you?
I am very good. I'm very excited about this day.
Oh, I'm excited about this day, too. This is an exciting day.
Yes.
I woke up very excited.
Yes, we are going to see the Barbie movie today.
Yay! I'm excited.
I'm a Barbie girl, living in a Barbie world.
I am not a Barbie girl, but I am living in a Barbie world, and I'm willing to embrace it because I like hype.
Yeah.
I like the hype.
And the marketing team did a freaking amazing
They
job.
did an amazing job. I also I love getting in. I haven't gone to a movie like this in a while where you like fully get into the movie going experience. I was saying too, because my daughter's coming with us and we all have our Barbie t-shirts and our little Barbie outfits to wear to the thing. And my daughter has been very like rolling her eyes at me. But I was telling her how I remembered like a core memory of mine is when I was about her age, like middle school. I think middle school, maybe even younger. I don't remember, but I remember going to see Batman.
Oh, yes.
And that was like a huge, I had my Barbie pin in my hair.
No, you didn't have Barbie, you had Batman.
I had a Batman, like a Batman hair clip. I had a Batman t-shirt.
I still have my Batman earrings from 6th or 7th grade, whenever that was.
Yeah.
And I actually wore them not too long ago to like a superhero themed party.
It's so fun. Like, it's just fun to go to a movie, fun to get into it. I mean, if it sucks, it sucks, but I
don't think it's going to suck. I'm excited.
I'm excited about it too. I know. And so I'm excited about that. We're having like a girls' day.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're going to watch a movie together for the show, which I'm also really excited about.
And I also think too, it's also kind of exciting. I feel like it's summer movie season, and that used to be a thing, and I feel like you've had Indiana Jones this year and Mission Impossible, and people are excited about the Oppenheimer and now the Barbie. So you know, going to the movies, I mean, that's what we did all the time.
I know, and like it just hasn't been that way since pre-COVID. And even pre-COVID, I don't know the last time I went to a movie like this where it was just so exciting to go see.
Where tickets are sold out and and people are psyched and people are getting. I mean, it's been a long time since anyone's dressed up to do anything like kitschy like this.
I love this. I was looking at Facebook at all the people I know who like took their kids to see. They're all dressed up like
so fun.
Barbie. It is fun. I'm really excited about it.
But before we get to see the Barbie movie,
we're going to talk about another movie. But before we do that, I just want to briefly thank everyone who's been listening to the show.
Oh, yes, of course.
All of those people, we've been hearing from you either, you know, through our Instagram messages or just in other ways that you've been reaching out to us. And we appreciate you guys so much. You know, certainly tell a friend.
Please tell a friend.
Tell a friend. You know, we really enjoy hearing about this, and we enjoy that you guys are enjoying our movie selection. That's the thing we keep hearing a lot about is that, you know, every time we post our different movie of the week, people are like, oh my God, that movie. So I don't know what today's movie is because...
Well, that could all change today.
It could all change today. I don't know what it is. But yeah, so thank you. Thank you all. But Kim, like, it's your pick.
It is.
So I'm trying not to look at your notes because I want to be fully surprised. So please get into it.
Okay.
I'm not.
So, I had a difficult time and I went back and forth on this movie. And I didn't necessarily choose this movie because of the movie. I chose this movie because of who's in the movie.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh my
gosh. I feel like, you know, we're talking about all these 80s things. We're talking about, you know, we're hyping up the 80s about our childhood. And we've been a little remiss in talking about a very big part of the 80s.
Oh my gosh, I have no idea what you're about to talk about.
And I want to tell you about something that was a staple of the 80s. It was a hallmark of the decade.
Okay.
Do you know what it is?
I do not, but I'll remember when you tell me.
It was the two Corys.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so much. I remember being in conversations, like serious conversations about who was your favorite Cory.
Right, and I was gonna ask you, who was your favorite Cory?
Him.
Haim? Yeah, I think so too. Okay. But, so the two Coreys was kind of this phenomenon of the 80s where these two young men starred in a lot of movies together, and they were kind of like,
they were cute.
They started off independently, but then became this like duo that were always together. So I did some research on the Coreys because I wanted to know more about the phenomenon that was the two Coreys.
Well, because I feel like I knew like Corey Feldman, he was in like a ton of stuff before he was in the Coreys. I mean, he was Goonies, he was Bad News Bears, he was...
So Corey Feldman, I'll tell you about him.
Okay, tell me about him.
Corey Feldman and Corey Haim were both born in 1971.
Okay.
They both had very early careers in the entertainment industry, but they actually didn't meet each other until they filmed their first movie together, which was The Lost Boys.
That was their first movie together?
It was their first movie together, yes, in 1987. Corey Feldman was actually born in Los Angeles, and he started his career in Hollywood at age 3, and he was in a McDonald's commercial when he was very young. He actually became emancipated from his parents by the time he was age 15.
Yeah.
And he made some claims, and we obviously don't know if they were true or not, but he said his mom was abusive. And the reason he became emancipated was because his parents were basically stealing all his money.
This is like a tale as old as time. And I hate this story.
Yes.
Because, like, and you know, I've even heard people who have made it out okay. You know, we were recently listening to Jason Bateman talk about, like, on the I forget if it was on the podcast or on their show that they just did, where he's just talking about growing up and that stress of knowing that you're making that you're making money for your family. And I just, you know, you think about kids and that they would be working at that age. I mean, there's certainly kids who you know, went through this system, came out well, but you always hear it's like they had good parents.
So Corey Feldman, you know,
and he's talked about being molested when he was young too.
We'll get to that. I have a whole Corey's history.
Sorry, I'm interrupting.
Corey Haim, he was born in Toronto, Canada. He actually started starring in commercials on Canadian TV in 1981, and he was on a series called The Edison Twins. So also he was about 10 years old when he started. His first film was called Firstborn, and it was in 1984 with Sarah Jessica Parker and Robert Downey Jr. Shortly after that, he got Lucas. That's a big movie. Yeah. And that was like 1987 area, and that's when he moved to LA. Both of the kids had difficult childhoods, and then became famous around the same time. And we don't really have these magazines today where it's like Teen Beat and
because everyone's on social media
and all this stuff, where you just had these meetings or these magazines that had posters in them that you would hang the posters on your wall, and there were like all these like cover stars and things, and these two were the height of that.
Oh, sure. I definitely had, like, we used to get those magazines all the time, my sister and I know we had Corey Haim's picture for sure in our room. So, not sure about Corey Feldman.
Sorry, Feldman. So, together they made a bunch of movies: Lost Boys, License to Drive, Dream a Little Dream 1 and 2, a movie called Blown Away, a movie called National Lampoon's Last Resort, something called Busted.
Okay.
And then there was a movie that was later that was Dickie Roberts, which they had a cameo appearance in. And they apparently also, I read something, but I couldn't find out any more about a sequel to the movie Lost Boys.
Really?
Yeah, that they were working on. So they partied a lot, and they referenced the fact that because they were famous, they could get into any clubs they wanted to get into.
Sure.
And they had access to alcohol. They had access to drugs. And I kind of thought about that, too, in that, like, that was pretty common back then. You think about, like, Drew Barrymore and a lot of people that were child stars.
Can you imagine? Because we both have been in our 20s before. So we've both been out to bars and clubs. Like, we went through all of that at a certain age. Can you imagine being at a club? There's dancing. Right. There's drinking. There's tons of fun happening. And you look over and there's a child in there.
Right. And they're drinking and partying probably harder than you are.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can't even imagine it.
Right.
Yeah.
So this was, it was very commonplace. But So there was a lot of other kids this happened to. This was a common thing, so much so that it's become like, oh, are they like Lindsay Lohan? Are they the victim of the child star kind of mentality that gets people to grow up too fast?
Right. And again, without good boundaries with your parents,
right.
and without that, it's really a recipe for disaster in a lot of different ways. And I think when I think about the Coreys, it's kind of sad. Like, I remember it being them being really cute and all of that, but as an adult, I look back on that and I feel very sad for them.
And so you mentioned about the sexual abuse, and Corey Feldman came out later on and said both he and Corey Haim experienced sexual abuse as young children. Feldman, he said it was by like an unnamed person in the entertainment industry, and then that all these rich and powerful people did all this stuff to cover this up. And he was close friends with Michael Jackson. He does say nothing happened with him and Michael Jackson. The singer never did anything inappropriate with him. He called his time with Michael Jackson his happy place. And because he had such a troubled childhood, he was able to get away and escape that by hanging out with Michael Jackson.
And I mean, Michael Jackson had a terrible childhood as well. I mean, I don't know what actually happened with him, but he's another just tragic story of like abuse when he was young, like parents pushing when little kids to be workers, and it's quite tragic, that whole thing. And I've heard there's like a thing on social media or a clip of him talking about, or I've read things on social media of him talking about being abused and how he spoke up and people just would not believe him, which I'm sure affected him greatly in his life.
And I think that eventually got to Feldman because a lot of people came out and accused Michael Jackson of abuse, and Corey Feldman had kind of always sided with Michael Jackson, and then at a certain point he was just like, I can't deny what these victims are saying anymore because it's their story to tell, and I'm, so he could no longer kind of stand up or defend Michael Jackson, he said, because he wanted to believe the victims since this was something that happened to himself.
Good for him.
Yeah. Corey Haim, on the other hand, never spoke out about his abuse, but Corey Feldman spoke about Haim's abuse, and he actually says that Charlie Sheen allegedly molested Corey Haim on the set of Lucas.
Whoa.
When Charlie Sheen was 19 and Corey Haim was 13.
Ugh.
But obviously that's alleged, and we don't know that, but that is what Feldman alleges happened to Haim.
Right. And I just wonder with two people like that if that's why they're friends, right? It's like, okay, you've been through this thing, I've been through this thing, let's align and let's be friends.
And obviously, a movie like Lost Boys had a lot of other young actors on it. The fact that those two paired off, I mean, their names are Corey, but what else do they have in common?
Right, doesn't mean they're going to be friends.
Right. But I did want to point out that Corey Feldman himself has been accused of abuse by other people as well. So obviously a very difficult life, lots of ups and downs.
Very Hollywood, though.
Very Hollywood. The pair actually, the two Coreys did a reality show together in 2007, and it showed the struggles of their friendship because I think there was a lot of ups and downs with their sobriety, and I think that caused tension in the relationship. Corey Haim struggled on and off with addiction, and I read something that there was a certain point where he was actually selling his own teeth and hair on eBay to make money.
Ugh.
Yeah.
God, that's so sad.
It is very sad. And then ultimately he died in 2010 of pneumonia, which was presumably related to his long-standing addiction problems. He was only 38 years old.
Wow.
Yes. Sorry to bring you down. I'm not trying to
bring you down. This is like a real bummer.
But I feel like it's like these two icons of the 80s. This is the reality of their lives and what actually happened.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like that's been, we've heard other movies that we watched. There's been people in those movies who tragically have passed since then for a number of reasons. And, I think that's it just seems like such an industry where, you can make all this money and you can have all this fame, but it just doesn't mean you're going to be happy in your life.
And then you see a lot of, I think a lot of Hollywood actors and actresses today really protect their own children from this type of thing because they see the damage that can happen. Like they don't let their kids be in pictures on their social media, and they don't let them start acting until they're old enough to make decisions, because you see, and I think this is all a result possibly of the things that happen to these young kids where they were exploited into working.
Yeah, well, you hear this thing. I mean, I think that now, again, because information is just more available and accessible, and, you know, it's not like, oh, it just happened to a few people. I mean, it's happened to a lot. Like most kids who start out at a certain age, it's like they're not going to...
There's not a straight line to success.
There isn't a straight line to success. There's all kinds of things that can happen along the way. And, you know, you think about Macaulay Culkin. You think about, like you said, Lindsay Lohan. I was just reading something about Shirley Temple and how awful it was for her, you know?
Yeah, and I read about some other people, like Tracy Gold, remember?
Oh, my goodness.
From growing
she had, like,
pain.
eating disorder
Eating disorder, but then she also had, like, DUI issues. And then all of the kids on different strokes.
Oh, yeah.
Remember?
Dana Plato.
Dana Plato.
Right.
And,
Todd.
Bridges.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's pretty commonplace.
Yeah.
So anyway, so Corey Haim passed away 2010. Corey Feldman, he is still working. He had multiple issues with the law over the years. He was arrested a couple of times, but ultimately he starred in over 100 commercials, over 50 TV shows, and over 100 movies. He currently works as a producer, and he has also has multiple bands. Can I
say that I feel like I've seen a lot, like, on social media, people will post things, and it looks a little train wrecky. Yeah. I have to say, like, I think his wife is in the band with him, yes. And it just seems very...
He's been married 3 times.
Yeah.
But his current wife, I believe, is in the band. He's released 6 albums. He's done a lot of solo work. He had a band called Corey Feldman's Truth Movement. And he also had a band called Corey and the Angels.
Okay.
And he wrote a book called Choreography.
Amazing.
I know, perfect title. I love
great.
it.
It's great.
And he had a documentary too, and that documentary is where he talked about all of the abuse and things like that.
Okay.
So I do follow Corey Feldman on Instagram, and he does post a lot about the music that he's working on and things like that. I believe that he is clean and sober these days, and just kind of trying to do his musical thing.
He's fully vibes with his music, and yes. I think that that's been the theme of all the things that I've seen, is that he just puts it all out on the stage.
Right.
He's giving it 150% every night, and he should be appreciated for that. He's still out there doing his thing.
Yeah, and he also talked about... actually, no. Let me back up. Hold on. I'm getting too excited. I also wanted to tell you this really, really, really strange fact that I found out while I was looking into this, because I think it's fascinating.
Okay.
So, Corey Feldman was friends with Michael Jackson.
Correct.
And him and Michael Jackson initially stopped speaking because Michael Jackson thought that Corey Feldman was going to write bad things about him in his choreography book.
When did Choreography come out?
I don't have a date.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
So they had a falling out. They weren't really friends. Cut to September 11th.
Like the September
11th, 2001. And Corey Feldman was in New York City. Michael Jackson was in New York City because he had performed a show somewhere the night before.
Okay.
Corey Feldman tells the story that basically Michael Jackson left him behind in New York City on 9/11, but got Marlon Brando, Elizabeth Taylor, and Liza Minnelli out of the city.
But not Corey Feldman?
But not Corey Feldman. I know.
Fuck you, Michael Jackson.
So, and there's like a lot of conflicting reports about exactly what happened, but like Michael Jackson like came in and like swooped in and like tried to get all of his team and all of these people out and all these celebrities that he was friends with, and they obviously couldn't get a flight. So like there's this like story that Marlon Brando, Elizabeth Taylor, and Michael Jackson like drove in a car together cross country.
Oh my God. Can you imagine being in this car?
You're just like driving across the country and you look over and you're like, holy shit.
Is that Elizabeth Taylor?
Right.
It's crazy.
So
what a group.
So Corey Feldman, obviously upset about this, he wrote a song that is called Megalo Man. And the lyrics are, I believed in your words, I believed in your lies, but in September, New York, you left me to die. I love you, Megalo Man.
Oh man, beautiful.
Right.
Beautiful. So clap for that one.
I just could not let this episode go by without telling the story.
This is the kind of fact that I'm going to be thinking about
for a long time.
Over the weekend, for a while. I'm going to reflect on what was that like in that moment? It's craziness.
Yeah.
Craziness.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate you for letting me know about that.
So, obviously, I had a lot of ways I could go with my movie for this week.
Yeah, I don't know what you decided on.
There's a lot of crossover, and I really wanted to do one movie because I remember it when I was younger, and I remember it being a movie that I was like, oh, this is artsy, I'm very into this.
Oh, no.
But when I read about the movies, I decided that I had to do the one where they both admitted to being fully addicted to drugs while filming the film.
Okay.
So,
I think I know what film it is, but go ahead.
It's License to Drive.
Oh my God. I'm so excited to watch this movie.
So, that was ultimately made my decision. I wanted to do Dream a Little Dream.
Yeah.
And
that's on my list, so maybe one day.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to watch it, and I did research on it, and someone called it aggressively unwatchable.
It is.
Which is phenomenal. But I remember when I was younger being like, I don't understand this. What's happening? This is cool.
And Dream a Little Dream.
Yeah,
because
it's black and white. It's
very weird.
But anyway, License to Drive. They're both fully addicted to drugs at the time.
Oh my gosh.
Came out in 1988. Directed by Greg Beeman. It was his directorial debut. The other things he's directed were Mysterious Benedict Society.
Oh, that's a newer thing.
And
it's good.
Falling Skies. Those were the things that were listed.
Okay.
This was Heather Graham's first big role.
Yes, that's Heather Graham in this movie? Oh my God.
Yes. Uncle Phil from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is in this movie. Yes.
Okay.
Carol Kane is in this movie.
Okay.
And someone named Richard Mazur, who you would...
Oh, I think I know that
recognize.
name. Yeah.
Corey Feldman actually told Larry King, so when Corey Haim died, they called Corey Feldman to be on Larry King, right? That's who you would call. And he actually told Larry King that they were working on a sequel to License to Drive called License to Fly.
Oh, no. Well, so this movie, I know I've seen it. Mm-hmm. I know, I remember really wanting to see it.
Yeah.
And maybe not being allowed to see it at first. I don't know. I remember, I don't think I watched it when it first came out, but I remember really wanting to because it was a big, huge movie at the time. But I do remember watching it on cable, probably years later. What year did it come out?
88.
88. Yeah. I don't know if I watched it then or if I watched it a little bit later or not, but it's, I feel like it's going to be really problematic.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. And like I said, I didn't necessarily choose it because I loved it. I chose it because of the Coreys and because of and I do remember it being a big deal movie. And I think probably because of the timing, you figure we were 11 years old. So you're wanting to be so grown. You want to be grown up. You want to be older.
Well, I also just remember being so in love with Corey Haim. Yeah. He was so cute.
So I guess for this movie, Corey Feldman initially auditioned for the lead role. Okay. But it went to Corey Haim. Okay. And I guess this was something that happened a lot in their careers. My assumption would have been that this would have been a movie that they created for the two of them to be in together. It was not.
Okay. That's what I think of even The Lost Boys. It's not Corey Haim is definitely more in that movie than Corey Feldman.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Corey Haim was the bigger star at the time. I don't know.
He was cuter.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Corey Feldman, but he was cuter, and I think he probably for that age he probably had more teeny bopper appeal than Corey Feldman.
Apparently Ben Affleck auditioned for the lead in this movie.
Aw, Ben Affleck.
Ben Affleck. Corey Haim's girlfriend at the time of filming was Drew Barrymore.
Ugh, that sounds like it was probably tragic. The two of them. Probably fun.
Yeah, but problematic for sure. Corey Feldman eventually dated Heather Graham.
Okay.
One of the things that they talked about was the fact that Sam Kinison comedian, older man comedian, loud.
Sure, I know exactly
You
who
know
it
what I'm
is.
talking about.
Sure.
Would often stop by the set to see the two Coreys because they all hung out all the time.
Well, because he's like a renowned cokehead,
Yes.
like huge drug addict.
Corey Feldman had just recently become emancipated from his parents at this time, so he had his own apartment. So it was just like
Party Central.
drug-fueled parties constantly. They would have coke-offs
Okay.
to see who could do the most rails and who could stay up the longest.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It's probably like, on one hand, like I think about a party like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like something I would want to be at.
No.
It sounds a little too crazy.
Oh, insane.
It sounds insane. Like, it sounds like the kind of thing.
It's people just doing coke and then just collapsing on the couch and not saying anything for a long time. Like, you know what I mean?
Like,
it's
coke makes you talk a lot. So it's probably people doing coke and just
making all these business ideas.
I was like, hey, listen to this idea. This is great. Right. We're going to make a sequel to this movie that's not even finished yet. Like,
it's going to be about flying.
It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like that's probably more what it was. I also feel like it's the kind of thing where you go to something like that and you're like so excited to go and you're all dressed cute and you're like excited to be at the party and you walk in and you're just like, oh no, ew, sad.
Also, like a 15-year-old's apartment is probably disgusting.
Oh yeah.
It's probably like the big apartment. Like there's lots of shit in there that nobody has any business owning at age 15.
He's like, I can buy all the Star Wars action figures.
Right. They just listen to Michael Jackson all the time.
Beat it! They're all on coke, just like, beat it!
Yeah. There were multiple times where the boys delayed filming because they would be staying up all night doing 8 balls. But they would come to
What is an 8 ball?
I don't know, but
like, is it a lot? Is it so much coke that it's like could fill an 8 ball?
I don't know what an 8 ball is.
I don't know either. We're probably better off for that.
Yeah. So like they would have, and then they would like do more coke once they got there so that they could actually like perform and do their roles.
So they're going to be like fully coked up.
That's
the Coreys in this movie.
Supposedly, yes.
Okay.
There is something that did come out, I guess, later on. So when Corey Feldman released his movie, his documentary, he really didn't say who molested him. However, he does point to someone in this film as one of the people that molested him later on.
Who?
The PE teacher.
Okay.
His name's John Grisson, Grisson. Okay. So, allegedly...
I don't remember our gym teacher.
No, but we'll go.
We'll see it. We're going to see it.
And then finally, before we go watch, Roger Ebert, he gave this 2.5 stars, and he said it's more than passable summer entertainment.
It's funny because I was going to ask if it was a summer movie because I have very clear memories of like knowing about this movie or knowing that was coming out and it's like summertime.
Okay.
Like I feel like the conversations I had about the Coreys
was in the summer.
Like it's so funny that I can like distinctly remember where I was having this conversation with like neighborhood kids when I was a kid, and it was definitely the summer.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm mostly excited to watch because I'm interested to see if their 8 balls translate to the screen.
I know. I feel like I'm so curious to see what's going to happen in this movie.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting.
It
so I'm excited to do it. So let's go watch.
Confidently controversial. Confidently controversial.
Get out of my dreams.
In the backseat, baby.
What a movie.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we didn't say before, but my daughter is here with us today.
Yes.
And so she watched the movie with us and was very stressed out throughout.
Stressed the whole time. She was more stressed out than I've ever seen a person watching a movie. She was like curled into a ball. Just like, oh, God. Oh, no. Oh, my gosh.
Well, do you want to give... Because I feel like we talked a lot about the Coreys.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about this movie. So why don't you give, like...
An overview?
Just an overview.
Okay. So, there is a young boy who just turned 16 years old, which means he's eligible to get his driver's license. And there's a lot of pressure on him because he's like the first of his friends to get his driver's license.
Sure.
So he goes to take the driver's test, and he is taking the written part of the exam, which is actually on a computer.
Yes.
It fails pretty much immediately.
Yeah.
But there's a some sort of short circuit or something, and all the computers lose power.
Uh-huh.
And they determined that because his twin sister passed with such ease and flying colors, that he also must have passed. So they pass him through the written part of the test. So then he goes on to take the driving part.
And he does fine.
He does fine. He passes that part. He does well in that. But then he gets back to the DMV, and alas, they found the results,
They
and
figure him out.
he failed. So he does not get his driver's license. So
Hijinks ensue.
hijinks ensue. He meets this girl, Mercedes Lane, who's played by Heather Graham, and she's dating some older French man.
He's like, is he like a I don't know, a club owner?
Yeah, he seems a lot older, but we'll get to that in a few
Sure.
minutes. And then she's in a fight with him, and she's like, well, he's going to take me on a date. And she points to Corey Haim, and he's like, I am. And then, so then she calls him up, and she's like, take me on a date. He doesn't have his license, so he steals his grandfather's Cadillac.
Uh-huh.
And disaster happens from that point on.
Sure. Like, she gets drunk, she sees the boyfriend again.
Yes. She drinks a whole bottle of champagne.
Like a big bottle, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, either way, yeah.
Either way, she still drank a whole bottle of champagne, passes out, like...
Yeah.
He gets the roof of the car. They stand on the roof of the car, and
she's like dancing on it and scratching it up with her heels.
Yeah.
But we think, okay, we're going to come out of this slightly unscathed.
The friends, Corey Feldman and this other friend.
Yeah. So he goes and picks them up. He goes into their house. They fix the car. Mercedes is passed out in the back seat, but we don't care about her because she's a woman and therefore just an object. And then they go
to like the pizza place. Like, I just feel like after a certain point, it's just thing after thing after thing, which I get it.
Yes,
it's a movie,
right?
But this was why my daughter was so stressed out, because it's like, this kid's going to get in trouble.
Right.
Things are getting, like, I think there's a point of no return where the car is so damaged because then, like, a drunk guy steals it.
Yeah, so it's fine up to a point, and then they're going to having this good night, and then their dorky friend opens the door, crashes it into the door of
punk rock guys.
Punk rock mean guys, and they start chasing them, and then there's a big chase scene that's just like through construction zones and over a ravine and into the woods. It's just like a whole thing. So, yeah.
It's not like, I agree with Roger Ebert. It's kind of just like a pop. I'd say overall it was not that bad except for the date raping.
Well, yeah, except for that.
Well, no, there wasn't date raping. I shouldn't say. It's not like that. She's passed out in the back of the car, and while she is, they take photos of her boobs.
Yeah. So, so the Mercedes character passes out. She's drunk on champagne. She's in the back seat of the car. One of the friends, the Corey Feldman character, is in the back seat. The third friend, I don't even know his name. I don't even know if he had a name. Charles.
Yeah.
He's, he's a shutterbug, so he's got all of his camera equipment with him all the time. And the Corey Feldman, Dino, he takes the camera and basically, like, lifts up her shirt and is taking pictures of her boobs while she's passed out.
And I really just felt like with that, the movie didn't need that. It wasn't like a big part of the movie. It didn't do anything with the thing.
But that exact thing is also in 16 Candles.
Yeah, but in this movie, if you had taken out that whole part, it wouldn't have changed anything with the movie, right? Because it would still been the same. Yeah, and it would have been like I probably would have walked away from this movie like, okay, like it's very Ferris Bueller-y, just like a romp. Silly, like a romp. Yeah. I'd say that's the only thing that's pretty problematic in it.
Yeah, well, and then at a certain point, basically, she says she's going to throw up. They freak the fuck out, drag her out of the car, and just kind of leave her with Charles. And Charles is taking her.
Charles
into the
is in charge.
He's taking care of her, and then they're like, well, what are we going to do with her? And then they put her in the trunk.
Oh yeah, that part.
That's bad.
That's bad too. And then they just go and they're going to pick up like new girls and have like a whole fun night.
They're basically going to still have their night with this woman passed out in the trunk because she's disposable.
Yes.
And they can just go find new women, hot girls to hang out with.
It's pretty.
Yeah, it's very bad.
It's very bad. Yeah, that whole part is very, very, very bad. Let's take it back for a second and just talk about Corey Haim for a moment.
Let's.
Lot of mouth acting.
Yeah,
happening.
I mentioned this when we started, and I had read this when I was reading about the movie. They say he spends most of the movie with his mouth open.
Yeah,
and that is 100% true.
Oh my gosh! Throughout the whole movie, he's like
a
who
gape.
is this kid? Like, is this what? Because he's a kid in this. Like, let's say that.
Oh,
we were talking before about how these kids during the filming of this, which I was reading, he turned 16 on set. Mm-hmm. So, like, usually you watch we've watched as part of the show movies that were like high school movies, but it's always like 20-something.
Yeah, like it's older people playing younger kids.
Yes. This is, they are kids, they look like kids.
They're playing kids.
They're playing kids. Mm-hmm. Like, they're playing the age that they should be in this movie, for sure.
And Corey Haim has like a baby face.
He has
like
a
baby face.
So when he's like, when he's got his like little doofus grin on his face with his mouth open, you're just like, oh my God. The other thing watching this is that the other things with Corey Haim, besides his terrible mouth acting, are that the clothes he wears are, like, I was thinking, if he was 16 when this was made in like 1988, he's not that much older than we are.
Right.
Like, I mean, we were elementary.
He was like 6 years older than us.
Right.
Because they were born in 71.
Yeah.
And now that you've outed us with our age.
Calm down. But yeah, like, so he's not that much older, and like the clothes, because the other thing I read is that he picked out all of his clothes.
I'll bet he did.
And the clothes he's wearing, I just kept thinking back to when I was in middle school, and that is exactly what everyone wore, with like the pants with like the French cuff at the bottom, and the sneakers, and like the shirt over shirt action that was happening.
He had a blazer.
He had a blazer at some point. It was his outfit and his hair, which, like, does he have curly hair in real life?
I think so.
Because they kept, like, it was obvious that it was, like, blown out, like, very, very blown out. But then, like, it'll be, like, obviously, like, often in the same scene, in one shot, heavily gelled and kind of wet looking.
Yeah.
In, like, the very next scene, like, just kind of, like...
Well, also, there were some inconsistencies.
Like feathery.
Yeah, there were a lot of inconsistencies with Heather Graham's hair, too. Did you notice that?
Yes.
Like, at certain points, it looked like it was like the curls were falling.
Yes.
And then in the next scene, they'd be all, like, tight again.
Yeah, it was...
So, and it made me wonder. So, like, the whole time, I'm just thinking, like, I wonder if they had to stop shooting because these kids are on drugs.
These kids are on drugs.
And then also, I was just like, what are these adult actors thing?
Because you got Carol Kane, who's like a professional actress who's been an actress like forever.
And the dad has been in a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And you just have these adults who are, just waiting around for these two kids.
Well, plus all the adults you don't see who are like the workers on the film who are just like, these fucking, like, at least, like, so many on that film set were just like, these fucking kids.
Yeah.
Like, they were probably just so over it with these brats in this movie who were acting awful on this set.
And showing up late and having Sam Kinison come over so they could do 8 balls.
Those kids were hanging out with Sam Kinison. Yeah. Like, now all these things that you said before, after now seeing this, I can't even believe it. Because in my mind, when you're saying that, I'm thinking
the
20-something.
Yeah, and the older
I was
kids.
thinking, and I was really thinking, although I think you said it, but I really feel once you see it, I was thinking, again, you're going to see this movie where they're supposed to be in high school, but really they're like 20-something year olds.
Yeah,
No, they look like kids.
Yeah, and to think about the fact that they were, like, not just doing drugs, but, like, fully addicted to drugs and doing a lot of drugs is just insane. It's insane to think about.
But I also think that, there's a lot of guilty parties here. Because if you had kids that were acting like that, and if it had to be known. Because they're working. Think about when you work in a work environment. Right. You can't go to a work environment and be like super hungover and drunk.
I think Larry's on cocaine. Larry from payroll is doing the drugs.
Right, like everybody knows, like you can't hide shit when you're working with people every day and they see you, and especially if their livelihood is depending on you because you're a higher up important person in that business that's happening, that film set. So like, what are these adults doing?
Right, well but then again, it's like, well, if we shut this down, that's our livelihood. That's
a
lot of money. That's a lot to lose.
So you said Corey Feldman, when this was made, he had emancipated himself from his parents, and he was living by himself in his own mansion. That's where they were partying it out.
In his own apartment.
Where were Corey Haim's parents?
I don't know. I think I did read that when he died, he was living with his mother.
Okay.
But I don't know where they were at the time. Like there's a lot of information out there, and it varies slightly. Like there was a conversation where I guess Corey Haim was possibly like taken under the wing of Robert Downey Jr. for a while.
He was the best. Yeah. At that point.
Right. So, but I don't know.
And he lived to be 38, you said?
38. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's just...
I know.
That's just so sad. Like, so he never really got to a point where he was, and he always had drug addiction throughout his life.
Yeah, from what I read, it was like, they would have fits and bursts where both of them would be like...
They struggled.
And like a lot of people do.
Sure.
Struggled to stay sober, and, but ultimately, they said he had been sick for a while, and by the time they took him to the hospital, he had his pneumonia was too bad.
Ugh.
So
that's just...
It is very sad.
So sad.
It's sad to look at that baby face on screen and think about the issues that were starting then for this person, and that the fact that they manifested and lasted so long into their lives.
And I think, you just think, well, this kid... Well, first of all, with the face acting, I mean, he needed some help there. But I'm thinking if you're on cocaine and stuff, you maybe don't know what's happening with your face.
You're probably trying to feel your jaw a lot.
Yeah, just keeping your mouth open.
Oh, by the way, I looked up what an 8-ball is.
Good.
It's an eighth of cocaine, usually cocaine. And I just started cracking up because I was picturing, you said, is it the size...
Of an 8-ball.
That's giant.
That's giant. That's a lot of cocaine.
But I don't know how much an eighth is either, so.
And how much does it weigh? Because it's just powder. I don't know. See, we don't know a lot about drugs. Right. Good for us. So we didn't ruin our lives like the Coreys did on the drugs. It was very, well, that makes me very sad. They're definitely too young to be doing that, for sure. Do you, since this whole movie was about getting your license and all that stuff, do you remember getting your license?
Absolutely.
When did you, what's your big memory from it?
So I was, I didn't sign up or something, so I had to wait a while, I remember. And then my uncle taught me how to drive. He used to take me to the airport. And he taught me how to drive there. I don't think my mom was patient enough to teach me how to drive.
Okay.
So, and then I remember, and the day I took my driver's test, it was snowing.
Okay.
And I passed.
Yay. Yes. Well, see, I was the boy in this movie.
You were the Corey.
I was the Corey because I was the first of the friends to have a car.
Yes.
And everybody wanted to drive in that car. But it was very stressful for me to be that person.
You're still a stressed out driver.
I am a very stressed out driver. I did not enjoy that at all, that aspect of it. But I was a safe driver.
Yeah, I remember you would pick us up for at least the first day of school. You would pick us up, and we would go to Dunkin'
Senior
Donuts.
year, I remember doing that, picking you up, and you lived on a busy road, so I remember my dad being very stressed about me picking you up, so I went some kind of a way back way so I wouldn't have to be on the busy road for too long. I do remember, so the day I got my driver's license was the day Kurt Cobain died.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow.
Because I remember this because it's I got my driver's license, I got home, and it was it was a weird, I think it was a Saturday. It was a weekend.
I remember being in my room.
And I got it, and then I remember going home, and I had track practice that day, but it was I I was like, okay, well, I'm going to leave early so I can just like drive around by myself. This is the first time I'm ever able to drive by myself.
I'm a free woman.
And I listened to Nirvana's album Nevermind while I drove.
Mm-hmm.
Did not know he had died yet. Went to track practice, came home, and that's when I found out Kurt Cobain died.
Oh.
I know.
Do you remember who told you?
My brother. Oh. And I believe he was a little bit shitty about it when he told me. Like, that guy you like is dead. Like, oh, man. Oh, man.
Wow.
Yeah, I feel like it was... I did like, and I think the thing that stressed my daughter out is the parents are very funny in this.
They are.
I really liked them both in
Carol
this movie.
Kane is incredible.
She is so... Her hair is incredible.
Yeah.
I would just kill for her hair.
She's a great actress, and she's always a funny character in any movie.
Yes. Yeah. And I just thought that they were so funny. Mm-hmm. And like how like he was in trouble, and they did act like parents who were just like, yeah, you're dead. Kid.
Right.
Like it was
You'll
very,
never
very
do
funny.
anything again.
Right.
Yeah. But at the same time, they're trying to be cool with him in the beginning. Like, they're trying to like give him a little leeway to like impress the girl. The dad's trying to be cool dad, but then he ruins it. So
he does ruin it. But I mean, I feel like overall, I mean, it's a fun.
Yeah,
it was
the driving scene test is pretty classic because you have Uncle Phil from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and he's the driving instructor, and he basically takes this cup of coffee without a lid and sets it on the dashboard, and is like, if you spill it, you fail.
Right. Right, and my daughter was just like, well, that's impossible.
Right.
That's just ridiculous. Why would it, that you can't, no one would ever pass.
Right. But he does it.
He does it.
So, yeah. So
it was good. It had a lot of, like, little funny moments like that. The drunk guy driving the car, Overboard, which I enjoyed seeing. I loved the fact that you and I, right away, were just like, that's the doctor from Overboard.
The psychiatrist, right, in Overboard. I also like when that guy steals the car. He's the one that ultimately like ruins and crashes the whole thing. But he falls asleep at certain points, and he like throws up at one point. It's just like a regular like throw up. But then there's another point where he's driving, and he's like, it's like a fountain of throw up. He's like, what? And he's like sprays up towards the ceiling.
It was awful.
It was amazing.
So gross. It was so gross.
Yeah.
Well, I know. Let's go back to the Coreys.
Okay.
So Corey Feldman really was not in this movie very much.
No.
It was kind of like when I was saying with Lost Boys, very similar thing, where Corey Haim is a very big role in that movie. Corey Feldman is kind of a classic role as one of the Frog Brothers, but he's not really in it that much. And kind of the same thing with this. I think, when you were talking about it before, it's almost like equal billing.
Yeah.
But really, Corey Feldman is barely in this at all.
Well, that's what I was thinking, too, because when I did read that Feldman wanted the lead role, I was like, oh, what does it matter? It's kind of like a buddy movie. But it's not. This is totally Corey Haim's movie, and Feldman's just there supporting.
Well, it sounds like one of the other things I read while we were watching it was that like I said, Corey Haim turned 16 on set, and they had a big party for him on set, and like all these people came to the party, but Corey Feldman did not go to the on-set party. So I don't know if they're saying like maybe there was some thing, but if they were hanging out, I don't know.
I think too, and they said this happened a lot where they were vying a lot for the same roles,
right?
So they were friends, but they were also competitors. And I also wonder too if when people are like, oh, the two Coreys. It doesn't make you friends, but it puts you together and makes you understand, like, for business purposes that you have to be together.
Well, so I was thinking, like, that, like a PR thing, where it's like, listen, you're going to hang out with Corey Haim.
People are going to love this.
We're going to get some photos of you guys going out to clubs together. We're going to put these stories out there in the media. Like, I could totally see a PR agency being like, this is good for you.
Right.
Like, and if you're like, oh, that guy's an asshole, I don't want to hang out with him.
Hollywood heartthrobs. Both named Corey.
Right.
Who can believe it?
Right. Like, I could definitely see somebody thinking up something like that for sure. So, but, I mean, it sounds like with Corey Feldman talking about him in his book, I mean, and they were still friends later on in life.
Yeah, and then I think they did the reality show together, which...
could also have been, like, an agent thing, like, listen.
Yeah, but I think it was also the idea of trying to, like, mend their relationship, because I think that, if you are... sober and your friend's not,
Oh yeah.
there's going to be some hardship there, some issues, some feelings.
Right.
So I think trying to mend that was probably a lot.
And I also think, like, we were talking about bigger roles. I mean, you're also talking about more money.
Yeah.
So it's like that, I'm sure, was a thing as well. Where,
And what were big Feldman roles? Did he have any big roles?
I mean, I feel like he was in Goonies was big. He was in Stand By Me, but that's more of an ensemble piece.
Yeah.
So I mean, he was a main character in that, but you know, he wasn't
really
like
little in that.
in what Stand By Me.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think with this. It was probably before this. Like, he's younger than this, but he's definitely, like, older than Goonies.
Yeah.
So it's, like, right in between there. So I feel like those things, and then it got into, like, this, where you had this and Dream a Little Dream, and I think he started to get, like, a little wacky. So it's, like, one of those things, because that's always the thing with a child actor. It's like, they're all cute, and then, you know, like Corey Haim with his baby face, but then they start getting a little older, and they start looking like adults and, like, a little weird.
Well, and stuff's not cute anymore.
Your open mouth acting is not great. It's funny because I was just thinking, like, when we watched Eddie and the Cruisers, you couldn't handle the way Eddie's mouth was in that movie. A lot of mouth lip syncing going
2 in a row.
But I didn't hate it with Eddie Wilson.
Well,
I definitely didn't like it so much. But also, he's like, you know, a little.
I think it's more, but because he's not really like mouth. It's like
he's like smirking, kind of. It's like mouth open. He's like, ho, ho, ho.
And his like upper lip is like protrudes a little bit, like almost like he has top braces, but he doesn't.
It's a dumb look. He looks dumb.
It's a doy.
It's a doy. Yes, it is a doy. Like, he definitely has, like, dumb face throughout the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah, and I also think, like, Corey Feldman in this is very much a dick. Like, his character. Oh, you know, he was in The Burbs, too. But again...
it's not a big character.
It's not a big character.
And that's older.
But I think he was, like, as a little kid, I feel like he was a bigger role in, like, Bad News Bears. He was super adorable in that movie. Have you ever seen that? Like, the original Bad News Bears?
I think so. But
But he was, like, a little... I remember watching that movie and seeing him as, like, a little kid. And he was definitely, like, a scene stealer type, like, where he was just so adorable.
Yeah.
So...
well, he's always had that, like, kind of, like, whiskey voice, too.
Yeah.
Like an older voice.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I know that I am going to try to listen to some Corey Feldman music.
No. Don't do it. It can't be good, right?
I don't know.
I mean,
if it was good, we'd probably know about it and have already heard it, don't you think?
I think so. I like the fact... Like, people are going to his shows.
Yes.
Because I think it's more like... Like, I mean... I'm sure he's making money from these shows because people are buying tickets, but it's very much like...
They want to go and see what's going on.
Let's see this train wreck.
Yeah.
This is going to be hysterical.
Yeah.
Let's go see Corey Feldman. And I just wonder what that... Because he has to know.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I don't know. I think that... I think there's a lot going on there, and I think that it's something that we can never get to the bottom of. But,
yeah.
I mean... You know, lost youth and all that.
He's a person.
He's a person.
He's a person.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he's been through all kinds of stuff. And even seeing this movie, even though it was like a fun romp type of, except for, like, you know, the questionable parts, it definitely made me feel really sad. For the people in it.
Definitely. And just like that, there's a lot of pressure on those kids, and maybe the only way they could deal with it was...
So, you know, next time you're watching a high school movie and the people in it, you're like, that person's not in high school. It's better that way.
Yeah.
It's better that way. Let them just be 20-year-olds, suspend your belief, and just accept that they're high schoolers.
Accept
because
their
we
wrinkles.
don't need real high schoolers having the pressure of doing these things.
Sure.
So, there you go.
Okay.
2 cents done.
Okay. So, this James Spader connection was very easy. I actually didn't even have to look it up.
Oh my gosh. This is crazy to me.
Can you think of it?
Can I think of it? I can't think of it.
All right.
I'm having a hard time. Go.
So, Heather Graham was in the Hangover movies with Ed Helms.
Yes, she was.
And Ed Helms was on The Office with James Spader.
Oh, Robert California.
Yes.
one of the classic best Spader characters of all time.
Yes. So, so we're gonna go, and we're gonna go watch the Barbie movie now.
Oh, yay! I'm so excited for that.
But make sure that you are following us, subscribing to us, liking us. We're at Confidently Controversial on Instagram, Confidently Contro on TikTok. And send us an email, confidentlycontroversial@gmail.com. Like, follow, share. What else am I supposed to say?
I don't know.
What do I have to
Give us a
for?
suggestion. Oh, what's fun? So a few weeks ago, we did One Crazy Summer.
Yes.
And there's a TikTok that's like a little snippet of the show that's out on the TikTok. And there's someone, like, there's been a lot of people who are just like, this is the greatest movie. Mm-hmm. And there's been people who are like, this is my favorite quote.
Okay.
And they're saying like quotes from it.
Oh,
so
nice.
It's great. So I love that kind of stuff. Absolutely. And Kim, I want to tell the people, because we watched the show, that you should stay confident.
You should stay confident. And you should only be slightly controversial when it is called for.
when you are empowered by it.
Yeah.
Be controversial then.
Right.
But other times,
that's
just
it.
stop it.
All right.
All right. We love you guys.
Stop it.